Hello, fellow translators. Today I'm talking about something a bit different. I will be talking about travel. And more specifically, I'm going to have some travel tips, some travel hacks and stuff like that. And this is for all of you freelancers out there, especially freelance translators. You probably at some point in your career will find yourself traveling quite a bit or often, or usually travel for freelance, especially freelance translators, takes place in one of two ways. It'll either be a client who needs someone in-house for a temporary job, say a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, something like that, and then they invite you over. Usually then they either find you housing or something along those lines. But either way, you go someplace and you work on a project for a while and then you come back. And in fact, what I usually see most often is that people start getting the lifestyle of what they now call a digital nomad, of being location independent. You realize you're doing work, most of it's online, and that gives you the independence to travel. Especially since we're translators, which usually means that we have two different cultures, two different languages, and which usually involves two different countries or areas or something like that. So you might want to travel and go back and forth between these different areas. So I feel like it's quite common among freelance translators, and so it's something that most of us will come across at some point. And either way, we all like to travel. And as you know, I did a lot of it, and I've talked about it before, but my wife and I were living for several years in all types of different cities throughout Asia, Europe, and the US, and that's what we were doing. We didn't really have a home base, but we kept living in different places. Anyway, today I'm just going to talk about travel tips in general, and kind of cover some of the basics that as freelancers, as freelance translators, that could be useful for you. These will be just general travel, but for people who might want to get work done wherever they go, so they can, they can travel around and still earn money. So first of all, travel tip number one is use hotel chains. And this is weird because usually people recommend to me to do the opposite, and to stay in a B&B or an Airbnb in someone's place or something like that because it has more atmosphere and this, that, and the other, or stay in an independent hotel, those boutique hotels, something like that. And I get it. They do have more ambiance and it is cooler and more fun to stay in them. And if you're traveling, especially with a boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, something like that, then maybe that's what you want to do. But for me, personally, I prefer chains, 100% all the time chains. And why is this? Well, for points. All chains, they have points, and so every time I stay in a hotel, I'm either using my points to stay there for free, or I'm earning points, so then later I can stay there. And to me, it just makes a lot more sense. And I think every time you travel, you should search for chains, especially if you want to get work done, because let's face it, these places are better for that. And also, anytime you stay in a chain, if you're not signed up for their rewards, sign up for their rewards. There's some exceptions, like if, now Marriott owns all of Starwood, so if you stay at Starwood, but you already have Marriott, you don't have to sign up for their rewards, obviously, but you should be using your Marriott points. Again, either be earning or using points when you go there. So either way, whenever you stay in a chain, stay in a chain and sign up for their whatever membership they have. It never costs anything, and so it's worth it at least to have. By the way, if you want to take this even further, and what I did was actually 2 of my credit cards were travel-based. One was a hotel and one was an airline. Actually, for a while, 2 were a hotel. Anyway, but do some research and you'll find that there's a Marriott credit card, there's an IHG credit card, and there's I think all the hotel chains have credit cards, and see if it might be worth it. If you find yourself very often staying in that same hotel or staying in the same chain, it might be worth looking into that credit card because you can get a lot of points that way. Most people, when they stay free in a hotel, it's not because they traveled there, but you get a lot more points just by spending the money regularly. And if you have a card that gets the hotel points, then that's great. And what I ended up doing was, putting a lot of the bills that I have to pay anyway, like electricity, rent, or stuff like that. Anything I can put on a credit card, I put it on there. And obviously pay it off every month. You don't want credit card debt, but at least then I get points for stuff I'm going to spend money on anyway. And then the next point, so that's point 1 plus 1A and B, let's say. The second point, if you do want to stay in a B&B, that's fine, or Airbnb or whatever it might be, a boutique hotel. But then if you do, you should use the broker websites. And these are either Expedia, Travelocity, Kayak, one of those like that. There are a bunch, Agoda, there are a bunch of them out there. I would pick one and use that every time you travel, because at least then you get points through them. Most of these have a point system and they give you points, and so you get discounts through them. So that way, even if you stay in a boutique hotel, you get points through them. And then, and if you have a credit card that goes with a certain chain, you get points that way when you pay for the hotel. And you find yourself after a while, when you travel a lot, at least I found myself double dipping in this sense. Like I would book at a hotel, and sometimes I would do it through these brokerage sites and get points there. I'd use my card, so I get points there. Plus I'd stay at the hotel and get points that way. And so, you find ways to mix and match and do this. But so when you book, if you are going to stay in a B&B or someplace, and for whatever reason it might be, that's not a chain, then at least use one of these kind of broker websites, and you can compare it to usually actually these broker websites are cheaper than if you go directly to the hotel website. You can compare prices, obviously, but very often it's worth it to do that. Number 3, and I see I'm taking a bit of time, so I'll try to go through these a bit more quickly. Number 3 I've already mentioned before, but I thought it was worth mentioning again. When I book, because they give you a choice when you book to do Mr., Mrs., or stuff like that, I always pick Doctor. The reason for this is that I feel like you get treated a bit better, and if there's a chance for an upgrade or for a better room or something like that, chances are they'll give it to the person who's a doctor rather than not. Once again, doctor doesn't mean that you have to be a medical doctor or anything along those lines. Anyone who gets a doctorate or a PhD in English literature can still be a doctor. So and if you put doctor, I feel like they take you a bit more seriously. So at least when I book, I tend to put doctor in, and that's for hotels, planes, whatever it might be. Number 4, I think. When booking for a room, I tend to, first of all, when it's asked, if you ask for what type of room, or if they ask you if you have a preference, anything, I usually almost always ask for something far away from the elevator, and that's because, once again, I'm traveling there as a worker, and I like to get work done. And at the elevator is usually where people congregate. There's a lot more noise. It's a hotel, so people come and go at weird hours all the time. And the further you are from the elevator, the more chances that it'll be more quiet. The other thing I ask for is a room that's higher up. I don't want the first or second floors. The highest up rooms are usually reserved for people, the VIPs, or people who are gold, platinum members, whatever. So if you're not that, you can at least ask for something a bit further than the first couple floors, because the first couple floors are going to hear all the noise from the traffic outside, or people coming and going in through the entrance if you're close to that, and stuff like that. And you probably don't want to mess around with that. So I tend to ask for a floor that's higher up, and hopefully I can get something that'll be a bit more quiet. Here, I'm wondering if I should divide this into 2 videos. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. So just to close this up, I ended up getting a phone call which interrupted me about 1 minute after that, and so I decided to stop the video there for the preliminary travel tips, and I have other ones, and so there'll probably be a part 2 to this video coming up. But that's it for now. I'll see you in the next video. Okay, thanks. Bye. Savedum.